So every now and then, people ask me, how do I find hope? Not how do I fake it or pretend it's there, but how do I actually find hope? When everything feels heavy, when there seems like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, where does hope come from? There's something beautiful and brutally honest in that question because it admits lack. It says, I don't see it right now, and that's okay. I've been there. I've stared at my ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering if it's all over. I've asked myself if hope is real, if it makes sense. But to me, things changed when I realized that hope isn't mere wishful thinking. It's not a Snapchat or Instagram filter that you slap on to look better or feel okay. In psychology, there's a theory called hope theory, and it helps us see hope not just as a feeling, but as a cognitive process. In this theory, there are 3 interlocking parts. First part is goals. What do you want? Usually something meaningful. The second part is pathways. How could you possibly get there? So I have a meaningful goal. What is the pathway to get there? And number 3, agency, which is your belief or energy to take the steps. Author Brené Brown once wrote, hope is not an emotion. It's a way of thinking. So when someone asks, how do I find hope? I myself don't start with feelings. I start with structure. Hope for what? What is the goal here? If you know what your goal is, then you can find pathways. And once you have identified those pathways, it's all up to you. It's all up to your agency. It's all up to how much effort you put into it, how much energy you put into it, how much you want to move on those pathways towards those goals. All of that is the structure that holds up hope. So let's dig deeper into those 3 pieces because they pull out of the ether and into your hands. So the first part of the structure is goals. These aren't just pipe dreams, right? Like, I wish I had a Ferrari. I wish I had $1 billion. These are something you lean towards. Psychologists say that we get more psychological benefit when goals are about what we want, not just avoiding what we don't want. So you have to change your frame of thinking, right? Instead of saying, oh man, I hope the world doesn't explode, we think the other way around. My goal is to contribute and educate in a way that will better our chances of not blowing up the earth. And there are many pathways to do that. You see, meaning matters. If your goal is tied to purpose, that helps hope stay anchored. You're not often losing it, seeing it fly away, have it one day, gone the next. It might feel less tangible sometimes, but that hope, for me at least, is what keeps me going. The second part of the structure is pathways. This is our map-making mode. This is where we brainstorm strategies, come up with variations, pivot when we need to. If one route closes, then we can pivot. We don't just expect there to not be any obstacles. We anticipate obstacles. We don't just lock ourselves into the one true way. We understand that life is so varied, so multifaceted. In research, people with high hope scores are good at creating multiple pathways to goals. Once we got these 2 parts of the structure down, we can now get into agency thinking. What is agency? It's our willpower plus belief plus motivation. Now, this is important to understand because agency takes energy, right? Willpower is energy. Belief is something that we begin in our minds. And motivation is part of the energy that moves us onto those pathways. A really good way to think of all of this is as a muscle. It's about trusting that you can move on those pathways. Now, sometimes your agency is low. Sometimes that muscle is weak. Sometimes that muscle is torn, maybe by a tragic event or a personal moral failing. That's okay. It's a muscle. We can recover. We can work towards strengthening that muscle, not through huge things, although that would be nice sometimes. And sometimes that does happen. But we don't focus on those big things. We focus on what we can do, what's in front of us. It's about the small successes. It's about encouragement. It's about reminding yourself of your past wins. Researchers show that when you can strengthen agency, because remember, we're thinking about this as a muscle, then our hope strengthens. So now we have these three pieces of the structure that uphold hope. And those three, goals, pathways, agency, they do not act alone. They form a feedback loop. You pick a goal, design a path, muster agency, you move, you lean. You pick a goal, you design a path, you muster the agency, you move, you learn, you direct, you build momentum. You see how that feeds into each other? The more you hope in this way, the more you find your hope increasing. And the good thing about this increase is that it isn't just kept to yourself. That hope begins to change your demeanor, your face, the energy that's around you, and it overflows and then begins to exist as a social gift. Meaning, when you see someone hope, it rubs off on you. When you come across somebody who has legitimate hope, they're educated, they know what they're doing, or at least they have some anchor in what they know they need to do or want to do in this world, it's encouraging. We often think that only leaders are the ones who embody hope, but hope is a universal gift that we have been given as humanity. So hope doesn't magically drop in your lap. Hope is built, it's constructed, it's fought for. So now then, how do we build hope? How do we practice hope? Here are some concrete moves that I think you should try. I've got 5 tips for you. Number 1, start with a small, meaningful goal. Something you care about, right? Because remember, this is a muscle now. We need to build this. You don't just go to the gym and try to lift 100 pounds right away if you're not built that way. Some of us go into the gym and we go all out, right? And then we spend the next 4 to 5 days insanely sore and we're like, yeah, no, working out is not fun. I don't want to go to the gym. Completely ignorant to the fact that what is going on in our bodies is a tearing and a rebuilding of those muscles so that we become stronger. You're not always going to feel that painful. It's just your body has never been through such pressure. So start with something small. Start with something you care about, something doable within months or weeks. Write it down. Make it specific. Let's say you want to create 1 micro art piece per week, or you want to reconnect with a friend. Maybe you want to open up your journal every morning for 5 minutes. Those are all really great, doable goals. Once we get the hang of setting our goals, we can move to the second structure in hope, which is pathways. So we brainstorm pathways and alternatives. For whatever goal you wrote down, write 3 possible routes to get there. If I want to create 1 micro piece of art every week, I need to make sure that my paints are visible, or that I have them, that I have the right tools, that I have a spot that inspires me. Then, for each of those routes that you identify for that goal, you can now list possible obstacles and a fallback plan, i.e. plan B. Okay, so, I need to go to this store to get these paints. And if they don't, I'm not sure if they will carry this type of tool that I need. But if they don't, I could always go to this place, which might be a little farther, but I know they'll have it for sure. Anticipate there to be obstacles. One of the greatest pieces of advice that I've received when I was younger and doing event planning and things like that, I was told, always expect something to go wrong. No matter what you do, what you plan, what you put together, something is always going to go wrong. So just anticipate it. Don't try to prevent it. Do your best to have a good structure, have a good planning phase, all of that stuff, but realize that something is going to go wrong and it's not going to be the end of the world. Here's a social example for this one. Remember, if your goal is to re engage with an old friend, then your first path, I think, would probably be your easiest path, considering most people don't like to talk on the phone. Your first path would be to DM them. And then your second path would be maybe you don't want to DM them because you're afraid of being ghosted or whatever, right? Your second path can be to send a handwritten letter. Or you can have a third path and invite them to an event. You see what I did with the first path when I mentioned DMs? I named an obstacle. I said they might not, they might ghost us. They might not respond. So now that we identified the obstacle, what we can then do is have a pivot plan. If that happens, wait a week. If they don't respond within a week, okay, maybe they don't check their socials, maybe they're just not somebody who texts. I can move to a different pathway. I can call or send a letter. Psychology Today calls this building hope via goals, pathways, and agency by anticipating roadblocks and planning alternative routes. Once we have our pathways and our goals nice and set, then we can begin to build agency through those micro wins and reminders. Remember, we're training our muscle now. So celebrate any forward movement, no matter how small. It's not silly. It's not stupid. Okay? It's not giving you a trophy. It's just celebrating. You have the ability to celebrate, so celebrate. You have the unique gift of expressing a win via celebrating. Use self-talk. I've talked about this in past episodes, how important and how life-changing somatic practices are in life. They have definitely helped me through some of the hardest moments of my life. Personal affirmations, verbal affirmations. Make it your reality. Psychologically, when you talk vocally, your brain begins to see it as reality. So remind yourself, I can take this step. I can do this. Maybe that's too much right now. So start smaller, okay? Micro goals, micro wins, okay? Start smaller. Use notes, phone alarms, reminders, post-its, whatever. Just do something. Begin to find a way that you can feed energy into yourself. Visualize yourself doing the steps and hitting obstacles. Visualize yourself doing the steps. Visualize yourself hitting obstacles. Visualize yourself pivoting from those obstacles and then succeeding. Once we begin to have a rhythm in that structure, we can then get to the fourth tip here, which is any form of a grounding ritual that you could have to keep yourself tethered. So these are kind of interwoven throughout the structure that we've just talked about, right? These are things like journaling. What happened? What failed? What's next? What's my goal? Or breathwork, meditation, somatic practices, creative expressions, writing, drawing, poetry, music. Again, this is all going to feel a little silly. That's okay because we need to work out this muscle. I think one of the best ways that you can begin to find a grounding ritual is by limiting the time that you doom scroll online or limiting overdosing your mind with news. It's great and it's necessary to be educated in the world, but I'm pretty certain you're probably consuming more than you can right now or should be. Those bad habits like doom scrolling and taking into information are traps that erase the pathways that you've been working on. The last tip I have here for you is engagement. Engage with community. Name that struggle together. Remember, I said that hope is a social gift. When you've got a group of people together and they're all hoping for the same thing and they're all motivated, you get things done. You ever been to a massive protest and you felt the energy there? Because you're all there for one thing. You're all protesting the same thing. Your goals, your visions, your wants are aligned. It becomes inspiring, addictive. It's like an adrenaline rush. So talk about your hope quest with somebody you trust. Invite other people. Post on social media. Hey, anybody want to get together and talk about this? You see, shared hope is stronger hope. So either find somebody who has that hope, and this could be online. I'm not saying it has to be physical. Physical is the best way. Gathering together in person is always going to be the best way because that's just how we are wired to best grow this muscle. But remember, where the ideal is lacking, grace abounds, right? If this isn't the ideal for you right now, we can find people like us online. Now let's have a little reality check because a lot is failing right now or has been failing in our society, in our culture. What do we do when it seems like life is determined to strip away all of this hope? When our systems fail, when grief is heavy, when the horizon is no longer visible, how do we keep going? You don't run from these things. You lean into the tension. You acknowledge the real pain, the real suffering, the loss, the systemic issues, even if you don't fully understand them. Let's say you're not the one personally affected by some of the failing that is going on right now. Maybe you're not a person of color or of a different gender orientation or sexual orientation, whatever. Don't pretend they're not there. Lean into it. Realize that embrace is reframing. It's empathy. All of this turns hope into resistance. Hope is not pretending darkness isn't dark. It's choosing to carry a match inside of that darkness. Hope is a social gift. Lean into the pain. Lean into these systemic issues. Don't ignore, call out, educate, learn, imagine. And if you feel like you can't do that right now, then I would be so bold as to push back on you and say, yeah, you can. You can start with one little thing because that's the first step. That's the first piece of this structure that it upholds hope is goals. Start with one little thing. Change is built in steps. So let me leave you now with this. Hope is not a treasure chest that you open once. It's not something that falls into your lap or comes once and then never again. It's a habit. It's a craft. It's a series of choices. You don't have to see the entire staircase, just the steps before you.